All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Week number 10. We got the Sunday slate in the NFL to dive into in today's video, with the exception of Sunday Night Football. That will be its own video here on the channel. But all of the other Sunday games we're going to dive into. I'm going to give you my prediction on the side. I'll give you my prediction on the total. We'll talk about any other spots like player props that I like within the game as well. But guys, all of our final plays are going to be on the Guy Boston Sports site. I'll put that in the pinned comment for completely free if you guys do want to see what I'm actually rolling with. So keep an eye out for that. And if you aren't aware, you are watching this NFL video on the more Guy Boston Sports channel, not the normal channel, the main channel that we have. I don't want to we've already talked about it in plenty of videos, but we have some complications going on right now. So we've essentially had to start from scratch with a new channel right now, just after hitting 100K. So if you are watching and you're like, hey, it's the same content, make sure you're subscribed to this new channel, hitting that like button and commenting down below as well. Would greatly appreciate it. And like I said, I'm keeping you guys updated on the situation. Just don't want to dive too much into it as of right now. But what do you say we dive into this NFL slate? Like I said, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. In terms of last week, actually, let's pump in some crowd noise. A 10-0 NFL week number 9, 3-0 Thursday Night Football, 5-0. This is the big day. This video last week, the big one, 5-0 for that one for Sunday, and then Monday we go 2-0. So 10-0 overall. What's even great is that we're off to a hot start in week number 10. Thursday Night Football, we cashed both the Joe Burrow over 1.5 passing touchdowns and the Bengals team total over. One more cha-ching from the soundboard. Let's carry that momentum into this slate. Let's go ahead and jump into it. Game number 1 isn't the sexiest, but we're going to cover it. We got the Panthers taking on the Giants. Right now, Panthers 6.5-point dogs. Total's at 40.5. I guess I would just look at the Giants in this spot. They have more offensive playmakers, and I think that's going to be sort of the difference in this game. Do I love it? Is this something that I expect to be a final play on the site? Probably not. The total, though, I could consider an under. I don't see where either offense is going to stand out. And we have seen some decent performances from the Giants defense this year, right? Are they consistent? No, but some decent performances. So I would look at the Giants minus the points as well as the under. Do either of those make it into, a final play? Not exactly sure. Make sure to keep an eye on the updated site. But that's where we lean right now. One play that I could potentially get behind, two different ones. Tyrone Tracy, over 17.5 rush attempts, as well as his rushing yards. Now, the problem is, obviously he's the RB1, and we get that, but is he going to lose carries as Singletary gets more and more healthy? I'm not sure, but we saw last week in a close game against Washington, he had 16 rushing attempts. Now you can get plus money for his over 17.5. I don't mind that, and I don't mind his rushing yards. This is the Carolina Panthers team that has allowed the most rushing yards to any player, as well as running back specifically this season, because they trail in so many games, teams are running the ball. So if the Giants get a lead, this may be a spot in which they say Tyrone kind of put this game away. So we'll see, guys. Keep an eye on Guy Boston Sports website there. Obviously, that'll be linked in the pinned comment to see what we rolled, if anything, in this game. Next up, we have the Commanders taking on the Steelers. Commanders, we kind of just talked about it, coming off of a win last week against the Giants. Pittsburgh a couple weeks ago, also coming off a win against the Giants, which is interesting. Both these teams just beat the Giants. Right now, Commanders at home here, and we got to fix that. It's actually -3 there, 3-point favorites. That totals at 44.5. This is a tough one because you have a really good offense in Washington, right? Now, Brian Robinson is a little banged up, but he's been a limited participant in practice, so I assume he'll play like he has. But you have a really good offense in Washington going up against a very good defense in Pittsburgh. So which way does this kind of slide? What I will say is that this Washington defense has come a long way. Now they have Lattimore as well. I think he's going to play. I believe that he was banged up and limited in practice, but I haven't seen that he's not going to play. Which way does this one slide? I think I'm going to trust the Steelers with that field goal in their back pocket. If you're on the Commanders this week, I'm not against it, if that makes sense. I understand if this gets offensive. I don't know if the Steelers necessarily have the firepower to keep up with it, but let's not forget, the offense hasn't looked terrible with Russ, right? This is 3 straight games, and I think he only played in the Jets one, right? But nonetheless, 3 straight games of 32, 37, and 26-point football. And it's not like Washington's defense is all that great. They've been a lot better, but what they do struggle in is the rush. And the Steelers team loves to run the ball. In the last 3 weeks, or 3 games of theirs, 3rd highest rush play frequency and 4th in terms of rushing yards per game. So it might have taken a few weeks, but looks like the running back committee there and just the running backs in general starting to do their job. So if they can control the ground game offensively and Russ kind of picks up the pass game, I don't think that Washington's defense is totally built to stop it. So give me Pittsburgh plus the points. That totals at 44. I would say that this is probably like a 23-20 type of a game. So very marginally am I going to lean towards the under in this spot. And then from a player prop perspective, I know I did mention that I think that the ground game is probably going to be where the Steelers control this, but so far this year, based on DVOA adjusted defense first position fantasy points, that was a mouthful, but it all makes sense if you slow it down. DVOA adjusted defense first position fantasy points. The Washington Commanders are allowing a 36% production increase to wide receiver ones. I think George Pickens is on the verge of really getting going overall, so I'm going to lean towards him in terms of his receiving yards, his receptions, as well as a potential touchdown. You can get that for plus 200 right now. In that game against, the Giants, he had a couple stripped away from him. I think that George Pickens is about to turn a corner, so looking at the underdogs here and some serious plus money with the Steelers, as well as that under, and then a potential look at George Pickens. Do I mind the running back and whatnot? No, but overall, I don't necessarily, what if Warren has a good game, not all of a sudden Najee plays okay but doesn't hit his lines? I think that's more used for the spread and total side of things versus targeting and player props overall. All right, moving on to what could be another messy-ish one here. We have the Saints taking on the Falcons. The Saints coming off of a loss to the Panthers, which that sentence should leave a disgusting taste in any Saints fan's mouth. Derek Carr did play, and it looks like he's been a full participant in practice this week as well. Atlanta's coming off of a nice win against Dallas, right? They've now won 4 of their last 5 games. The only one they lost was just that dud against Seattle, which kind of came out of nowhere. In terms of where I'd go with this one, it's probably taking a peek at the Falcons, but I don't like that 3.5. It would have to be either that line moves closer to 3 or 2.5, or we buy the point, because 3.5, I feel like this isn't necessarily the best spot for the Falcons on the road after a home game against Dallas. New Orleans now has lost 1 million in a row. They're finally starting to get healthy now. Olave's still injured. They have a ton of guys that are still injured, but obviously Derek Carr coming back is the big one, and it's going to be now another game in which he plays in, you know what I mean? So to me, I just can't necessarily sit here and be like, the Falcons going to blow them out, especially with some of the injuries that the Falcons are dealing with. Drake London, Kyle Pitts as well. Now, I think they both were limited in practice, so hopefully that means that they play for this side of things. But talk about your offense all of a sudden being decimated. 2 of your most skilled guys, wide receiver 1 and tight end 1, poof, type of thing, right? So it is going to be a little difficult to be that confident in the Falcons. That's why I would look at them inside a field goal at like -2.5, or the very worst, -3. Now, that total is sitting at 46. I can't necessarily say that the Saints are going to contribute to this, but if we can get a good total here for the Falcons, now, if we look it up really quickly here, their team total right now, over 23.5 is -140. Probably not the value there, but that's the side I would continue. Until we know that the Saints offense can kind of get things going again, I'm not really factoring them into a total. So I would lean towards a Falcons team total over, but that's about it. And that would obviously have a lot of factoring in whether or not Pitts and Drake London are good to go as well. All right, Bucks and 49ers, we do have a lot of injuries to keep an eye on here. On the Bucks side, Baker Mayfield, questionable. Obviously, we know about Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Shepard's now questionable, so is McMillan. There's a lot of injuries on the offensive side for the Bucks, I guess, as well as the defensive, too. Whitehead's injured. We've seen a couple linemen injured, but there's also some injury news and updates to keep an eye on the San Fran side of things. Biggest and most notably would be Christian McCaffrey is expected to play, but Juwan Jennings, Deebo Samuel, Jordan Mason, Nick Bosa, I believe, is questionable as well. There's a lot of injuries in this game. So before rolling with it or jumping to a conclusion in this one, guys, just keep an eye on the injury report and kind of the status of some guys. When guys are practicing, even in any capacity, a lot of the times they do play in the NFL. If they're non-participants in practice, a lot of times they don't play. Like Baker, I don't think has practiced yet this week, so maybe that's something to note. You know what I mean? But overall, I do think with McCaffrey coming back, and it seems like San Francisco, even though they've had their injury woes, it seems like they're a little bit healthier. Them winning by a touchdown here wouldn't surprise me. We forget they're a 4-4 team. We forget how good this 49ers team is overall. Obviously, they were in the Super Bowl last year, but even still, they have had some bad luck this year. Now, what I would say is the Bucs have played a pretty tough schedule. They're number 1 in terms of strength of schedule. I believe their opponents are 54-25 or something like that. So it is a tough spot, right? To even make the schedule argument or San Fran's better than they look. But San Fran's getting healthier. They're getting what we might forget is the best player in the league, Christian McCaffrey, back. So to me, I'll lay the points with San Francisco. Confidently, maybe not, but I don't necessarily mind it. That total sitting at 50, that is very, very high. But we've seen the Bucs kind of, as long as Baker Mayfield plays, like he should be able to give us their portion of this. So I will slightly lean towards that over, but I don't necessarily think that I love it in any way, shape, or form if Baker Mayfield is out, which as of right now, I'm starting to think that he might be, right? Another spot I might consider is something like, Brock Purdy's over in completions. I think that they're going to be able to kind of dink and dunk around. This is not the best of defenses when it comes to the Bucs. And if Christian McCaffrey comes back, I think they're going to try and get the ball into his hands a couple different ways, not necessarily just giving him the ball and running up the middle. You know what I mean? So right now, Brock Purdy over 21.5 pass completions. He hasn't hit that in 5 games. I think that this could be a spot in which he comes pretty damn close. So we'll see. It's definitely a high line, but I think that they're thinking what I'm thinking as well about this Bucs defense. Real quick, guys, Sleeper has an awesome offer going on right now. First off, CJ Stroud for Sunday. New users can get this square 0.5 passing yards. Yes, just 1 passing yard, and he hits this. And they're also offering up to $1,500 in deposit match bonus for the time being. That is the largest they've ever done. Check out the link in the pinned comment. I'll also put it on the Guy Boston Sports site with the final picks and plays. Go ahead and check out Sleeper, guys. This is an absolutely amazing offer. You don't want to miss it. I don't know how long they'll run it for, but you're getting this square and that deposit match. Absolute no-brainer. Go check it out. Link in the pinned comment, as well as over on the Guy Boston site, along with the final plays. Go check out Sleeper. I chuckle at this because this makes me wish I don't have a Sleeper account yet, because only new customers can get this. So if you haven't signed up, go ahead and check it out. This is absolutely crazy. We move into I don't know if I'm going to love this one. I am a Patriots fan, so we will be watching it, but I don't know if I love it. We got the Bears taking on the Patriots here. Bears coming off of a loss against Arizona, and their offense that was looking really good. Like last 4 games for them, right? 36-35, and then all of a sudden against Washington, 15, they lost in the Hail Mary, right? And then against Arizona, 9. It's like, did their offense just take a step down? Whereas the Patriots, you might be able to make the argument they're doing the opposite. Like last 4 games, so since Drake May has started, 21-16, 25-17, like they've started to play well. So having those 6 points in what, we're looking at a low total game at 38.5 is probably where I end up going. Now, I do think fair odds or fair number here would probably be Patriots like plus 7.5. So we are 1.5 points off, right? But I don't feel comfortable laying this number with the Bears overall. We obviously do have plenty of injuries on both sides, but overall, I still just think all of them speak a little bit more towards what I would look at on the Patriots side of things. So yeah, give me them. It's not a biased pick. I think the Patriots stink this year, but 6 points is a lot to be giving, I believe, if you're the Bears here. Like, have we not seen the discontent and malcontentness of DJ Moore talking to Caleb? Caleb's getting banged up. Like, this Bears team is in a little bit of disarray right now. So, yeah, give me the Patriots. I do think that both offenses are still struggle worthy, so I'll probably take a peek at that under 38.5 as well. It's a little low, but I do still think that that's probably the side to look at. And then in terms of some player props here, there's one that I guess I could consider. It depends on the line, but I don't mind a DeAndre Swift look here. This Patriots team, yes, they'll sack up and play well sometimes, but overall, I really don't mind the idea of DeAndre Swift over 14.5 for his longest rush. He's done it in 7 of his last 10 games, 5 of 8 so far this year. And the teams in which he hasn't done it against have either been decent defenses or last week when they just couldn't move the ball. So I don't mind this spot for him to have a rush of 15 yards. In terms of his actual rushing yards lines, that's 70.5. Little bit too high for me, but still something that I might consider. But I think I like that over 14.5 for his longest rush more than maybe anything we've talked about in this game, honestly. All right, we're moving on to Jacksonville taking on Minnesota here. I hate to say it, but I do think that this is a massive spot for Minnesota. I feel like they kind of went into limbo, obviously starting the season so well, then they played Detroit and lost, and then they played LA and lost, right? And then they get that win against Indianapolis last week. Was it the greatest win? Was it the craziest win? No, but I feel like now they kind of have a Jacksonville team on the ropes. Now, what I will say about Jacksonville, their offenses look better, their defenses look the same, but at the same time, they played Green Bay and Philadelphia in back-to-back weeks. But Minnesota should be able to have their way in this spot, and I think that this spot means a lot to Minnesota to say, hey, We are back to where we were. We did have a couple losses in a row, but we're right back to where we were. So I'm going to lean towards Minnesota in this spot, but I would tweak it a little bit. I don't know if I want to lay the 6.5 or whatever it is, 7 points by the time this closes. It's probably going to be a peak at Minnesota team total over 23.5. Now, has their offense been clicking and looking amazing? No, but Jacksonville, in terms of what they'd have allowed so far this year, 20 and 18. Okay, you thought their defense was going to be good through weeks 1 and 2, right? And then all of a sudden, 47 to Buffalo, the over hits. 24 to Houston, the over hits. I'm talking about the opposing team's team total, right? Indianapolis drops 34 on them. Then 35 to Chicago. And then 16 to the Patriots. Okay, great. And then all of a sudden, 30 to Green Bay, 28 to Philadelphia. Like, teams are scoring on this Jacksonville team. And I like that spot because we do have Minnesota, who's been I guess you could say, better pass defense or pass team overall offensively as of late, right? Against Jacksonville, who is just has been struggled against the pass. 31st in terms of stopping the pass so far this year, 264.3 yards per game. So I think Minnesota moves the ball. I think they can run it whenever they want to, but again, such a bad pass defense in Jacksonville. So that's kind of how I would like hybridize this game in terms of the total and the spread being all in one. I'd probably just look at Minnesota to go out there and give their best effort at scoring 23.5 or 24, I guess I should say, points. From a player prop perspective, I do not think they get there without Sam Darnold kind of, dinking and dunking the way up the field. And his line right now is only at 20.5 for his pass completions. Has he been crushing that? No, but against this Jacksonville team, I feel like he should. They are allowing the 3rd highest completion percentage against, and teams are passing the 7th highest frequency against him this year. So I like Sam Darnold to dink and dunk in terms of his completions, get 21 of them. I'd love to see a 19.5 out there to get 20, right? But also that Minnesota team total over is where I would look to first in this one. Hopefully that makes sense because, again, I do think Minnesota has a good game, but I'd hate for them to be like, yeah, we had a good game, won by 6, and then, you know what I mean? But they scored 24 points doing it. So that's kind of how I beat around the bush and kind of strip out some variables. Colts, Bills, another spot in which I think I'm going to consider a team total here, and it's going to be on the Buffalo side. So do I mind Buffalo minus the 4 points? Not necessarily. They do have an injury list that is super, super long. A lot of guys participating like Kincaid. Even Josh Allen was a full participant, but he is listed on the injury report. You have Amari Cooper. He was limited, but he's playing. Keon Coleman, I believe, is out, so that's one to note. But overall, I expect most of these guys to play. Again, we're in week 10. Like, guys are going to be on the injury report. Honestly, not many injuries for the Colts side of things, but they do have a little bit of like quarterback drama going on, right? Naming Joe Flacco as a starter. Pittman is questionable. But overall, like I was saying, I don't mind the Bills minus the points, but I don't see a way in which they don't cover those 4 points without scoring 24 points. So just like we did with Minnesota and like we've kind of looked at even with, the Falcons, right? I don't mind the idea of, okay, what if this is a close game? Who knows, right? Joe Flacco, veteran, maybe he does a good job. But I still think the Bills can score on this defense. The Bills are the number 3 pass offense in terms of DVOA ranking. So some of their pass metrics are only 16th in terms of yards per game, but they're only passing at the 21st frequency. So obviously, I guess pass per type play, they're doing okay. And they're the 3rd best in terms of DVOA rankings, which is a little bit different. In the last 3 games now, they're the 3rd best overall in terms of passing yards per game, going up against a Colts defense that against the pass is the 4th worst from a DVOA perspective. So I see them being able to move the ball and score. We know they have a good run offense. We've seen that. I believe that's been proven. Obviously, they're a run-first type offense. So I think that'll be okay. But I think that Josh Allen in the passing game could definitely kind of take a step up here, which would, in my opinion, result in more points because they're more chunk plays and everything like that. Now, from a player prop, so that's how I'd go. Team total over for the Bills. Again, it kind of takes a little bit of dipping into both the spread as well as the total without having to play both. I'd also take a peek at Dalton Kincaid over his receiving yards. This dude has been Mr. Inconsistent this year, but this Indianapolis team has struggled against tight ends. So I wouldn't mind him probably even for a touchdown, for his receptions, his receiving yards. Like, I do think that this is a good spot. And obviously, with Coleman being out, that's just another receiver that, Josh Allen may look at, but now doesn't have right now. Cooper and Shakir, like, he definitely has other guys out there, but I think that Kincaid could kind of have a step up type of a game here against this Colts defense. So again, I don't mind the Bills, if you just have access to that spread, but I think that there's something to be said for that team total over 23.5 as a better look, but that's just one man's opinion, right? Kansas City taking on the Broncos, and I'll admit it, We're sounding the psycho alert alarm in this one. I think 8 points is too much here. That total's at 41.5, telling me that, whoever's setting that line thinks that this Denver defense is going to contribute and step up, right? Because that total's down there and is low. So if Denver's defense does come to play and they do their job, then I think that they can obviously kind of temper this Kansas City team from pulling away. Now, you could look at it and be like, well, Denver hasn't played many teams, and, when they do, like last week when they played the Ravens, they let up 41 points. Fine, I get it. I don't know if that happens 2 weeks in a row, but if it does, then we'll play it by ear and take it from there. You know what I mean? But I think that this Denver team could kind of suppress somewhat of what, Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs like to do, especially with the fact that, so far, I guess, this year, but also overall recently, like, this has been such a banged-up Chiefs team that it's not like the offense has looked phenomenal. They're just really good, and they've scored, against Tampa Bay's defense, 30 points, Las Vegas's defense, 27, San Francisco's defense that's been kind of hit or miss, 28, New Orleans' defense, 26. Oh, they played a good and similar defense in the Chargers, right? 17. And then, okay, Atlanta, 22. Cincinnati, 26. Baltimore, 27. Like, there's not many good defenses I'm naming here. You know what I mean? So this is going to be probably the second best defense they see. And yes, we have last week as sort of a, well, look at what Baltimore did to the Broncos. But I think Baltimore's offense is more dynamic than the Chiefs. They are so banged up and dinged up that it's tough. So screw it. Sound the psycho alert alarm again. Broncos plus the 8 points. Do I have the cojones to type that and put it on the site as a final play? I'm not necessarily sure yet, but I can tell you right now, I'm not considering Chiefs minus 8. In terms of that total, I would probably think maybe Chiefs team total under. I don't necessarily want to sit here and say that, it's going to be a low scoring game, but overall, we could lean towards Chiefs team total under. And then even if the Broncos somehow play well and whatnot, we're just relying on their defense. We don't need for them to stay in the game anyway. Like, what if this is I guess we could say like a 17-0 game, right? It's like, well, yeah, I mean, they stopped the Chiefs from scoring, but the Broncos didn't need to contribute in that. Now, maybe an under could be a way to look at that as well, but again, if we just strip out variables, we're looking at just one defense versus one offense, that type of a thing. But we'll see. I for whatever reason, it's like it's shining. Maybe it's bait, maybe it's a trap, but those 8 points seem like they're a little bit too much, and I don't have any player props in this one that I'm liking as of right now. Let me know in the comments, comment psycho if you've made it this far in the video, but in that comment, let me know if I am a psycho with this one, or does that make sense? Like, I get that Baltimore just torched them and maybe said, hey, well, that Broncos team isn't real, but I don't know. I'm buying on what they're selling, and I feel like I just started to start buying shares a couple weeks ago. You know what I mean? I was like a naysayer on this Broncos defense until recently, and now that 8 point just seems like it's a lot. So comment psycho. Let's see if you guys have any spelling bee ability, because that is a tough word to spell. But comment psycho and let me know if you think that I'm crazy, or just give me your take on that game, because I think it's an interesting spot, especially being in Arrowhead. I get it. All right, we got the Chargers taking on Tennessee here in this Week 10 matchup. Chargers 7.5 point favorites, so that's outside of that touchdown and extra point. The total's at 38. I would probably say that this is most likely an under type of a game. If this was like 5.5, I think I would lean Chargers. So just giving you kind of an idea as to where I see the number being. You know what I mean? Like, I think that is a little strong. So if you're on Tennessee, I could see that. I don't know if I can fully get there based on what we've seen out of Tennessee, especially with like what is the quarterback situation, and even still, like, look at them. The Patriots taking them to overtime. Like, this is not that great of a team. Now Tony Pollard's banged up. Like, there are some question marks there. What I will say though is I don't necessarily see the Chargers going down there and just scoring a boatload of points whatsoever. And this Tennessee defense is legit as well, right? So maybe this is a spot in which I say, maybe a same game parlay of Chargers money line, and then we bump up the total a little bit and take the under and see what we can get for odds there. But I do think this is a Chargers spot as well as an under spot. But those numbers, and hopefully that's making sense to you guys. Like, I think the situation would be Chargers and under, but those numbers are pretty dang sharp if you ask me. So kind of tough to sit there comfortable being like Chargers -7 and the under 38. Like, no, those are tough ones to pick, but that is how I'm feeling about it. Ultimately, it's going to be tough to get sort of a situation that we like in this one, because again, that's a big number. That's a low total. Maybe if we do some sort of a parlay, that might be the ultimate move. All right, next up, we have Arizona taking on the Jets. Arizona getting 1 point at home. Total is up there at 47. I've seen some 46, so keep an eye out for that. But what this tells me is that both offenses should be okay, I think. And that makes sense to me. We see two offenses both probably getting more and more comfortable, better and better. Like, yes, the Bears have a good defense. Well, Arizona just dropped 29 on them last week. You know what I mean? The Jets just beat Houston, who has a very good defense, by scoring 21. So, in Thursday night, like, this is obviously, and they did have some late scoring, I get it, but still, Aaron Rodgers had himself a game, 3 touchdowns, what was it, 22 of 30, something like that. Played pretty well, and when it counted, Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams both stepped up. Point being here is that if this is going to be somewhat of an offensive affair, I don't mind taking a peek at the over. I don't mind the idea of Arizona kind of competing with that either. So the reason being is that Arizona hasn't necessarily been the best run team so far this year, but the Jets' run defense has not been all that great overall. And if James Conner gets going, like, that is the turnkey to the success of the Cardinals. Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, McBride, all these guys, yes, they do step up, and when that happens, they play really well. But I've started, as I've watched more and more of this Arizona team, like, their offense lives and dies by whether or not James Conner is able to go out there and produce. Now the question becomes James Conner. He's questionable in this spot. So gonna hold off on this one, but I do think that, Arizona's probably my move if need be in terms of this spot. I think it's gonna be a close game, and honestly, the point probably doesn't matter. It's probably just a money line play overall, but I don't mind the over either. Like, neither one of these defenses is all that impressive. We have two offenses that are hitting somewhat of a stride overall. Maybe I'm exaggerating off of, a couple weeks in a row, but that is kind of where my head's at as of right now. If James Conner does play, I wouldn't mind the idea of a touchdown run from him either, because you're going to get a lot of looks once they get down on the goal line. All right, our last game that we'll cover in today's video, we got Dallas taking on Philadelphia. Philly coming into this one after 3 straight, actually, I think 4 straight wins, if I'm not mistaken, right? 4 straight wins, and they've scored 20, 28, 37, 28 points. Dallas seems like they're in such a questionable spot right now. Coming off a loss to Atlanta last week, their defense just looks terrible. Last 3 weeks, 47, 30, and 27, which I believe is an average of, unless my math is incorrect, which definitely has a strong possibility, but it looks like they're averaging like 35 points per game or something like that allowed, whereas Philly's defense has somewhat stepped up. Now, can you make the argument that they've played some bad teams? Yeah, in their last 3, 2 of those games are against the Giants and Jacksonville, but they did hold Cincinnati to 17, so I think that is a little bit of like a net win. I feel like I have like team total frenzy this video, but my main look is going to be Philadelphia team total over 23.5 in this one. Who's going to tell me that Dallas is going to stop this Eagles team? Even historically, the Eagles have dropped this many points on them overall. And right now, you just have an Eagles team that is running the ball like you read about, and Dallas, who literally just stinks against the rush. So I like the idea of Hurts having a good game, Saquon having a good game. There's definitely room for player props in here. I just don't even know where to begin in this one. So keep an eye on the Guy Boston site for any sort of breakdown or added plays of player props in this one. But to me, this is another one where I look at Eagles team total over. I guess lay the points to them, but I might even consider first half, because I think that 7 could come back to bite them in the end. But overall, we've done it multiple times, and I laugh at it because it's like I didn't expect to, as we're going through these games, expect to have all these team totals. But looking at the note, I'm like, team total, team total, team total. And I think that's a way to sort of minimize variables. And obviously, we're having a very good NFL season, so I'm going to trust my thoughts. You know what I mean? Do I think we go 10-0 this weekend? No, but I do like the idea of saying, okay, well, if that 7 seems like it's too high, is there another way? This is probably a better way of putting it. If that 7 is too high and too big of a number, is there another way to take the Eagles that we don't have to worry about that 7 and we can just let them go do their thing? And that's the team total. So that is going to wrap it up. I would lean towards, I guess, the over overall, but team total more importantly to me. That's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Again, hit that subscribe button. Hit that like button. You guys have been absolutely electric in terms of supporting the new channel. I'll keep you posted on the main channel. Like, that's not dead. It's not gone. It's not banned. It's just we do not have access to it right now. And there's more information to come on that. I'm hoping that we get it back and get it back into good standing, but kind of stinks. But this new channel has been obviously a breath of fresh air to see how much support, and it's been like a sigh of relief because it's so stressful, yet this new channel is crushing. So I do appreciate that, and I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.